Hello, my name's John Wadsworth, I'm an astrologer and this is my video blog for Wednesday the 10th of August 2011. Well, we're in the middle of an extraordinary time, aren't we, here in the UK. We've had rioting since Saturday across the country, starting in London and now spreading throughout the country. And yes, as you might expect, we have an astrological signature to reflect that, to meet that, really quite an extraordinary one, quite an obvious one in many ways. On Saturday, Mars completed the fourth arm of the Cardinal Grand Cross. In the sign of Cancer, it opposed Pluto, squared Uranus, the two heavyweight planets that are squaring up to each other over this whole period through to 2015 and beyond. Mars pulls the trigger. That's what Mars does when it contacts a big outer planet transit. It will pull the trigger. Whatever is held in potential with two outer planets squaring up, Mars will release that, and that's exactly, of course, what it did. A flashpoint incident. The shooting of Mark Duggan was the Mars trigger that has just erupted into what it's become this week. And of course, you know, we've been shocked by it, perhaps, but perhaps not surprised. I mean, you know, these are the times that we're living through are so volatile. This is such a volatile year, and we have certain flashpoints during the year. This is one of them. Back right at the beginning of the year, I said in a video entry that this would be the year where people took to the streets, where we saw revolutions, where people expressed their anger and dissatisfaction in a very public and direct way. Of course, a few days after I posted that, we had the Tunisia situation. A couple of weeks later we had Egypt, then we had Libya and the whole of the Arab Spring. I also said in that video back in January that the UK would see this directly also, and of course this is now coming to pass on one of those two flashpoints. The two trigger points, or two of the trigger points in the year. There was the trigger point back in January, we had the trigger point in April when Mars was in Aries, conjunct Uranus, and now we have the trigger point as Mars hits the next arm of the cross in Cancer. And this really makes sense from the UK perspective. The UK chart that I use for 1066 carries a Sun in Capricorn on the midheaven, Mars hitting the opposition to that at that point that represents the collective consciousness, and Mars in the sign of Cancer anyway will stir something within the collective, and it will express something. The rioters that we've seen out on the street are expressing that they're at that kind of sharp end of something which so many people are carrying: a disillusionment, a disenchantment, a resentment, an anger, which isn't being expressed so publicly, but just in that fringe edge, what people are calling the political underclass, the wildness of a disaffected youth, a disconnected youth, are expressing something that I think is really for the collective. It's not coming out in any kind of politically revolutionary way at the moment. It just looks like, you know, random acts of selfishness and greed, the looting, you know, reflective of the excesses of materialism, the loss of values that we, of course, that our extreme materialistic culture has come to represent. We're obviously going to see that played out. What that does to stir people, to make people look at themselves, to become more reflective, I think is the key. Doesn't seem to be coming through much in the media, you know, which still kind of rolling out very much a reactionary line. But it should stir us. It should make us more self-reflective. It should make us think about our own part in all of this, how this is playing out for us as a human collective, as members of a planet and a cosmos, and how for us to see that this is actually part of a much bigger change. What we're seeing is the overthrow of an old order, and we're still at the beginnings of it. This is still the tip of the iceberg. Uranus and Pluto don't make their square alignment until their first actual perfect square until April next year in 2012. This particular period, I'll just say a little bit more about it. Well, obviously we're running up to a full moon, so we might expect to see this escalate and grow yet, even though things were apparently quieter in London last night. It's spreading to other cities. We might not have seen the back of this yet, of this particular phase. I think there's something is culminating, brewing, growing up to the full moon. Let's see how it unfolds. Mars is also what we call out of bounds. It's beyond its normal latitude. It's beyond the confines of its normal position on the ecliptic. It doesn't return back into line until the 26th of August. So Mars is kind of wild at the moment. Mars has had a strong year. A lot of planets in Aries earlier in the year. Mars is and Aries has been a very prominent sign this year. So Mars is strong, particularly wild at the moment. Even as it comes back into line, it squares Saturn. So we're seeing this clash with authority. And we may see the authority trying to clamp down very strongly on that wild energy. We may see some quite draconian political measures coming in as well through this. Often happens, of course, doesn't it, when there's an outcry like this, we see our civil rights closed down. I think we could expect to see that again. It's something I spoke about at the beginning of the year. This, I think, is a time where that could begin to happen, and we may rue that later, of course. But we haven't seen the last of this. Clearly, this is part of a process that is unfolding. But astrology can help us with that overview, and I think it can also help us to come back to ourselves, to strengthen our commitment to our values, our principles, our commitment to love, compassion, and to recognising that we're all a part of this. It's no good just demonising one element in society. We need to also recognise our own responsibility within that, and hopefully that's part of this waking up process that we're all part of. I still believe it's a privilege to be here at this time and to witness these extraordinary changes, however chaotic and difficult it might be while we're going through them. And I'll continue to post on here and attempt to offer that astrological overview of these transitional times. If you're interested in learning astrology with me, I'm running a new 12-month astrology course through 2012 into 2013, starting on the 7th of April 2012 in Glastonbury. Runs over 7 weekends during the year with full mentoring and support through the whole year. And if you can find details of that on my website, which is www.kairosastrology.co.uk. Thank you.